Hello and welcome to what I hope will be a series of food reviews. I'm Michelle. I've been a Weight Watcher for the last 3 years and I've lost over 20 kgs. Now, a really big part of being able to lose that weight is deciding what food is worth eating. I always say I've never met a food I didn't like, but there are definitely hierarchies, and I guess this is a way for me to decide what's going to be at the top of those hierarchies, so what's going to be worth spending those points and calories on. I'm here today to review some Lindt chocolate. I've decided to go for the higher end. Years of experience has already led me to believe that chocolate is better at the higher end. Cadbury is like the McDonald's or the Coca-Cola of the chocolate world. It's cheap, it's easily available, and it's ultimately just not satisfying, or has no real kind of benefits to it. I'm not saying that dark chocolate is beneficial. I'm not going to weigh in on whether or not dark chocolate is good for the health. I can't be bothered with the science of it. I see this as a luxury item, a treat. It's certainly not a health food item, but having a little bit of this stuff does help to prevent me from having those sort of binges at the impulse bar in the supermarket. Anyway, to get on with it, today I'm going to be reviewing 3 different flavours from the Lindt Excellence range. So I've got the Arabica Intense, the 70% Cocoa, and the Chilli. Now, these are all flavours that I really like. I have tested them before, but I've never really sat down and had all 3 of them in one sitting. Now, nutritionally, these are fairly similar, but it is worth noting if you are looking to cut down on your sugar intake, as a lot of us are these days, the 70% cocoa does have quite a bit less at 5.8 grams per serve, compared to 9.5 grams in the other 2. The other difference between these 2 and this one is that while they're all 3 pro points for 2 squares, this one is 2 pro points for 1 square, whereas these are only 1. I guess if you're not following Weight Watchers, that's not going to make a lot of sense to you. Now, for those 3 points, you do get 2 of these squares. Matchbox size for comparison, they're fairly decent, a little bit thinner than your other chocolate brands, but I really like that they're kind of wide and flat. You're much less likely to shove the whole thing in your mouth, and they're just perfect for nibbling on and being satisfied with just the 2. Right, enough of the technical number stuff. Let's get on with the tasting. I'm going to start with the Arabica Intense. Now, I'm a really big fan of coffee with chocolate. I'm a fan of coffee, I'm a fan of chocolate. Put the 2 together and it's something pretty special. I was pretty disappointed when Roses took away the chocolate flavour from their box of shiny Christmas treats, but I found that this is quite a nice little substitute. So let's get to it. This is quite rich, which I guess you come to expect with a dark chocolate, and reasonably sweet. So there's not really any of the bitterness that you normally get with a dark chocolate. It's quite sweet for a coffee as well, but very, very intense coffee flavour, which, if you are like me, is exactly what you're looking for. Could be a little bit dangerous, I think, because of the sweetness. I might be tempted to eat more than a couple of pieces of this, whereas some other chocolates probably would hold off. The bitterness would be what would hold me back from eating too much of it. But otherwise, very, very nice if you have got a little bit of self-control maybe, or are less inclined towards the coffee flavours. I'm just going to have a quick sip of water to cleanse the palate. Okay, on to the 70% cocoa. Now, I'm actually going to use the rest of this block later today to make my own sort of peanut butter cup chocolates using Pix peanut butter. I'm going to melt it down So just the one square, and that's going to make the points for my little peanut butter chocolate slightly lower as well, which is always a bonus, even though I will have consumed it beforehand. All right, let's have a go. Definitely a lot crisper to bite into. Like more solid, I guess, and dry, if that can even be a way to describe chocolate. It's still not as bitter as some of the higher cocos, but definitely a lot more bitter than the Arabica Intense. I'm just going to try a little bit more. There's a more satisfying crunch to it. And it doesn't melt in the mouth quite as readily. Which I'm not sure whether that's a good thing or not. But I definitely don't think that I would sit and eat an entire box of this. Right. Bit of water. Definitely a really good one for cooking, making desserts. The higher you get with the chocolate, and Lindt does make up to, I think, about an 85% or 90% cocoa chocolate. The more bitter and sort of difficult to eat they are, I think that's probably the easiest to eat of the higher percentages. Probably the closest to eating just your average dark chocolate. But still bitter enough that I think you'd get away with only 2 squares. Alright, onto the chili. Now I've chosen this one last because I think it's going to have the strongest flavour. I'm just going to have a little bit more water. I'm a huge fan of chili in chocolate. I'm not the biggest fan of chili in most other cooking, but in chocolate I think it is just the perfect combination. We even had an entire tier of our wedding cake was chocolate chili mud cake, which was fantastic and gave our guests all a wee bit of a shock, I think. This is probably my favourite of the 3, and well, I'll just eat some and let you know why. So crunch wise, it's somewhere in between these two. It doesn't immediately start to melt in your mouth, but you do sort of get that feeling that you're actually biting into something as it goes into your mouth. The chili aftertaste is where the real kicker is. Like initially, as you've got it in your mouth and you're chewing and swirling it around with your tongue, you don't notice the chili as much, but it will start to sort of settle on your tongue as you kind of swallow and remain there for a few minutes afterwards. It's not a burning hot, it's just a pleasant sort of tingle, I guess, of chili in the end. I love it. I really, really enjoy it. So yeah, basically I find this one, the Arabica Intense, great if you love coffee, great to sit down with a nice latte and just nibble on a couple of pieces. But again, it's surprisingly easy to eat, a little bit sweeter than the other two, and perhaps getting into slightly more dangerous territory if you're one of those people who finds it hard to stop with the chocolate. Lindt would be the 70% Lindt would be a perfect option if you are a big chocolate lover, but can't trust yourself to have anything in the house that is too easily eaten. It's just the right amount of sweetness coupled with the right amount of bitter that you can have a couple of pieces, feel like you've had your chocolate hit, had a really satisfying crunch, and then you can move on. The chili, if you are at all into chili or chili flavoured things, is just amazing. I could easily have a block of this in the house, make it last me a week, and be satisfied with just 1 or 2 pieces at a time. And it is a really lovely little treat. Now, I find that having these in the house, as I said earlier, it prevents me from going and buying a Moro at the supermarket because I need that chocolate hit. I do allow myself to have a couple of pieces most days, but that's balanced with a really generally healthy diet of all the other good things that I do need to have. As for the actual price of them, you're looking at around $2.99 a block. Often they'll have a deal in most of the major supermarkets where you get 2 blocks for $5. But I personally think it's worth it to have those little treats and to prevent big blowouts on other bits and pieces. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have and will enjoy the rest of these chocolates. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, watch over and over, email me fan letters, just whatever it takes. Have a great day and remember to eat good food.